Big Sills! Happy Friday to you. 28 days until the National Football League's draft. Incredible. Final day of March. April around the corner. NC2A tournament. Go Canes this weekend. Take out UConn. Get into the... Hey, how incredible and how, low rated would this be if FAU and Miami's in the national championship game? Two football schools playing for the national championship. I'll say this again to you. What you're seeing this weekend in the NCAA tournament, in my opinion, I think it's collateral damage from COVID. No blue bloods. All the guys playing an extra year. All the experienced teams bringing more dudes back. That's why you had all these upsets. People like upsets until you get to the Final Four. Then they want to see the blue bloods. Kentucky, Duke, Carolina, all them dudes, right? I think it's going to be pretty interesting. It's not for everybody. But I'll say this one thing about the NCAA tournament. It's the second best sporting event in the United States. Am I wrong? The NCAA tournament, compared to college football, in my opinion, it's fair. College football is not fair. I'm going to show you something later on in the program. One of you guys gave me a great idea for a topic. And so I went around last night talking to some of the great personnel people, and I've got the top 32 players as of March 31st for 2024. And some of the guys that they've looked already and forecasted for next year's draft. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to look at the Eagle defense here in a second. But it's the second best sporting event. I'm going to be sitting back this weekend watching this thing. I'm looking forward to it, man. So, great weekend in sports, getting closer to the draft. All right. You know, one of the great things that we have here on JAKIB Sports is that we got a variety of shows. Birds 365, got a brand new one now. The sports take guys do a spectacular job. They get a variety of guests on, as we do. So I was listening to Jeff McClain today from the Inquirer, and they were talking about Gardner Johnson. It's funny how media people talk and how they talk out of both sides of their mouth. On one hand, Jeff goes, hey, my interaction with him was great. But if you talk to Eagle people or other people around the league, they say he's a loose cannon. Or he's difficult to coach. I don't know it to be a fact. I'm paraphrasing his sentence. My interaction with him was great, but from what I heard. Well, which is it? Do you have an opinion if he's hard to coach, or is that just something that someone threw at you? This is the shit Seth and I were talking about the other day. Is it fact or not? Which is it? If you're going to make a proclamation about a player or a person, either your personal experience should outweigh anything you hear from someone else, unless someone's sending you false intel. Which is it? Is it the Eagles telling you he was difficult to coach after they couldn't sign him? He said, I was listening and I'm going, okay, so what is it? Your interaction with him was great. He goes, I had a great relationship with him. I liked the kid. Okay. But if you ask around, he's difficult to coach. Who? They were concerned about if they gave him a lot of money. That's the stuff you talk about. You know, you could sit here and talk to me and go, Sills, you're a shock jock. You do this, and that. I'm not a journalist. I'll never be confused with one. But if you call yourself a journalist, and I'm not really so much taking a shot at Jeff, but I'd like to know what he's talking about. Gardner Johnson's also now difficult to coach. Where'd that come from? Okay? And now they're even putting narratives out there that they've graded up on Gardner. So he's difficult to coach and they graded up. Okay. Really? So the Steelers move off that guy, but they've graded up. I'm just, again, hey, I don't mind people making comments like Jeff McClain, but I'm confused on what comment is real. Your personal relationship with him, or you're being told by executives around the league that he's difficult. How would somebody in Seattle know if Gardner Johnson was difficult to coach? Unless he was talking to somebody in the Eagles organization. Were the Eagles throwing that out there that he's difficult to coach? Were they spreading rumors about him? Where'd that come from? That's the shit Seth Joyner and I, again, we're talking about. All of a sudden now, he's hard to coach. You know, when you can't re-sign somebody, what's the easiest thing to do? Smear him. Take a shit on him. That was their number one priority, I told you. That's why this whole... By the way, he's guilty, too, of being a tool. CJ, dude, I told you this. You've won this. Got a chance to make $8 million. Okay? You got a chance to make $8 million, dude. You've won this thing. Go play great ball for Detroit. Go play great ball. But see how the Eagles control the narrative? I've asked Gardner Johnson, did the Eagles offer him more money? I actually heard McClain say they offered him more. He says that's not true. So McClain got that from the Eagles. I got it from the player. And here we are. Here we are with a false narrative on a kid. Because the organization couldn't get their way. Typical NFL. When the NFL doesn't get their way on something they want, that's what they do. That's a pattern they have. Again, I mean, it's not so much a shot at Jeff as it's a narrative with media versus a player. And what Seth and I were talking about, all of a sudden he's a bad guy now. Well, wait, I'm not saying that, but I am in a way. You think that's right? I face this bullshit all the time. And people don't know me from a can of paint. But I face this shit too, so I'm a little sensitive to that. Hey, I liked my personal relationship with the guy was great. But what? But what? You're a journalist. You're a journalist. So, again, I mean, he's hard to coach now. Wow. That's new. No one heard that shit. Or unless now it's being bled out he is. Interesting. I was listening to that and I'm like, this is exactly what Seth Joyner and I were having a conversation on. I mean, if you're a journalist, I was talking to Howie Roseman, one of the things we were really concerned. Get this. So they were concerned on him being coached, but yet they offered him more money. Isn't that a contradiction in itself? Hey, we were going to give him, let's go with what the narrative is in Philly. Let's say they were going to give him $7.5 million. Hey, but he's a little hard to coach. You were still going to give him the money and he was a top priority? It doesn't sound right. I mean, it sounds like he wants your cake and eat it. Am I wrong? Hey, again, I told you this before. I'm an observationist. I'm constantly looking for topics. And when I hear a guy expand on something that I talked with a guy like Seth, and then I hear a guy do exactly what we talked about. You know what? I know his coaches from the Gators. They said he's a high energy guy. He may say some shit off the top of his head, but he's really a good dude. That's what I heard. Again, Miguel goes, why are you still talking about this? Because Jeff McClain brought it up today. That's why. That's why. Man, it kind of goes like this. Maybe they felt his talent was technically worth more, but they held back due to other things. Like other things. Other things? What were those other things? They offered. So wait a minute. Minicati, they offered him more money, but they were concerned. Don't you just pass on someone if you're concerned about one's behavior? Or do you go down that line? And do you coach it? Funny, look what Mike Tomlin did with Antonio Brown all them years. All them 100-catch years. Guy was a toolbox. When you're a great coach in a great organization, you coach that. You manage that. That's what makes you great. Personalities? Everyone's got one today. As a coach and a general manager, those are your jobs. That's part of the job description. Okay? Only thing I give a shit about Gardner Johnson is that he's a good teammate and he plays hard and he shows up on Sundays. And that's what he did in Philly. He played hard, he showed up, and he was a good teammate. Funny, you know what? You hear all these narratives from the media, but I haven't heard a player say anything negative about the guy. I haven't heard anybody say that. Okay? Tone says, for clarity, when you say they didn't offer him more money, are you saying they didn't offer him a multi-year deal at the beginning of free agency? I asked about the money, Tone. I didn't ask about the length. Okay? This was a couple days ago. Okay, so I asked about the money, not the length. I should have probably asked about the length. Just to be fair, I am fair. I don't throw shit out on somebody that I don't know facts on and then turn around and tell somebody, hey, I like the kid. And my relationship was good. I don't do that shit. You know what that's called? That's a two-face. Hey, I love the guy, but hey, I heard this. Okay. That's not fair. Either you don't like him or you do. Oh, I see he liked everybody else but you. Or he liked everyone. He didn't like everyone else, but he liked you. I don't get it. Oh, I do get it. I do get it. Typical media. That's why you never call me a journalism. And that's why I'm not friends with many of them. Come up with shit like that. Hey, but see, Jeff's doing his job because ball clubs are telling him that. He's not lying. It's not him. I'm not circling Jeff. I'm circling the league. Jeff does his job. He's very good at it. I like his columns. I read the Inquirer and I read his stuff. He's good. This ain't a him thing. That's what the league does. All right. Let's take a look at the Eagle defense as constructed today on March 31st. I've got the list of the players, and I want you to tell me if it's important any longer to have a top 10 defense. Let's take a look at where we are now. I think, you know what? The offense, in my opinion, is set. Oh, Manicotti, what the conversation that you have in Philadelphia about Gardner Johnson, look what they're doing to Lamar Jackson. He's dumb for not having an agent. Hey, dude, what are you telling him? To shut up and dribble? What, he's not multifaceted? He's not smart enough to ask for what he wants? I hate that. Well, he should hire an agent. Maybe he doesn't want to. Are you under some impression Lamar Jackson's a stupid ass? Why is that narrative out there? That he's not smart. He doesn't know what he wants. He and his family know what they want. But he's a dumbass because he doesn't have an agency like CAA or Clutch. Give me a break. That's an insult. That's a shut up and dribble comment. You can't talk multiple things or think multiple because you're an ignorant athlete. That's not cool. I despise that shit. How do you don't know Lamar Jackson from a can of paint? Lamar doesn't help himself, okay, by tweeting at nobodies on the internet. Dude, seriously, don't send. Tone says, word is Roquan Smith negotiated his big deal with the Ravens without an agent. Now Lamar Jackson is crazy for not having an agent. That's right. Okay, so Lamar's a dumbass. No, you know why? Because Lamar's asking for a lot more money. Okay, he's the face of the franchise. And I wonder why everyone is going after him. Let me guess. Because the NFL and the organization are doing this and colluding against him. Typical NFL. The media are in the NFL's pocket. That's how they do this. Roquan Smith. Thanks, Tone. That's awesome. Roquan Smith, smart enough to cut a $100 million deal, but Lamar's a dumbass. Must be the college you went to. Hey, Louisville guys aren't that smart, I guess. I don't know. Okay? That's for a different topic, I guess. Dude, don't be snowed over when you hear something that you know, unless you get some clarity to it. On Gardner Johnson, on Lamar Jackson, on Roquan Smith. That's why the media hates social media. You know why? Because you can go. Let me put this out there. Do you know another reason why Trump absolutely infuriates the media? He don't need them. He can go to social media and put whatever he wants out there and go directly to the people. What do you do when you do that? You ex-nay reporters. You cut them out of the job. You think the media in this country digs social media? They hate it. Why? Because you're not relevant. You're not relevant now with social media. They're running journalism out of the building. You understand that. Social media is running journalism out of the building. Why? I can go right to Odell Beckham Jr. I don't have to have some reporter tell me what he thinks maybe why the Eagles didn't sign him. It makes you irrelevant. That's why they say these things. Gardner Johnson goes right on my Twitter page. I don't need a reporter. I exclude all the Philly reporters and really Detroit Free Press guys because he comes right to me. What would I rather listen to? A reporter or Gardner Johnson himself? Infuriates the media. Infuriates them. Because just like the newspaper business, there is no newspaper business. That's why these journalists are now columnists with opinions. Because nobody gives you the straight facts anymore. Because you know why? That doesn't move the needle. It doesn't move the needle. Controversy moves the needle. We all know this. That's why Elon Musk paid $44 billion for Twitter. Okay? He is the modern day Randolph Hearst. William Randolph Hearst owned all the newspapers across the country, right? Controlled the narrative in the media. Well, today's modern day William Randolph Hearst is Elon Musk. And and Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk are the modern day William Randolph Hearst. If it bleeds, it leads. Absolutely, man. Why do you think in Los Angeles they put on car chases? O.J. Simpson, still to this day, the highest rated show in the history of KABC, was the O.J. car chase. I mean, L.A., you should see it. There's two things they put on in Los Angeles. I Love Lucy and car chases. I don't get one of them. I kind of get the other one now because America likes train wrecks. Crazy. All right, let's move over. Let's move over. I like Smith, Ray. I think I think all those players are good. I think they need to move out of 10. We'll talk more about that as we get into the show here. Let me read the defense to you as of today. Tell me what you think of it. And you tell me if this is an upgrade from a year ago. Or if this is enough to get back to the NFC Championship. You know, I may have changed my opinion on this defense here. Let me throw this at you here. By the way, I think the kid they signed from the Saints yesterday, I like that move. I don't think anybody from round 3 down is going to be better than the kid in New Orleans. He's underachieved in New Orleans. Maybe in a different system, maybe playing next to Fletcher. He has the same impact on him that Fletcher had on Javon Hargrave. I do think Fletcher Cox had an impact more on Javon Hargrave because you know why? Fletcher's the better player. Would we not agree? If you looked at careers, whose career would you rather have? Fletcher Cox's career or Javon Hargrave's? Fletcher's only 2 years older. He's bigger. He's done more. He's more accomplished. He's a pass rushing freak because of his size. Javon Hargrave may have more dollars in his wallet right now. He's not a better ball player. He's not. Ray, I think Street's going to be solid in the rotation too. I do. I think he's going to be solid. So let me read this to you here. Brandon Graham, and by the way, Tone, I know that we talked that they have to have 4 linebackers. I don't think they have the personnel yet for 4 linebackers. So I'm putting this defense, this Sean Desai defense, in a 43. As of now, okay, until I see more backers, and I think your strength is 43, not 34. Okay, I think it's 43. So let's go with the premise of that. Brandon Graham, left end, double-digit sacks last year. And then I'm going to show you what I think they need to do in the draft. Jordan Davis, left tackle. Okay? Hey, let's do this. On March 31st, Jordan Davis is now put in a starter's role. He has no latitude. You're either showing up this year or you're a bust. How about this? Let's be fair to that. You either show great promise and improvement like Jalen Hurts has, or the bust word is going to start being thrown at you. Is that fair? You're now in a starter's role. I want to see the same improvement out of you that we saw out of Jalen Hurts. A lot is on you for this defense to not have the fall off that it had a year, or the fall off that some think may happen. Is that fair? I am not calling him a bust. But, dude, countdown starts. By week 17, if you haven't shown improvement, you're a bust. Or the Eagles completely overdrafted you. Today, we're going to go like this. He's a first rounder, and he's starting at left tackle. It's almost like a fresh start here. Because you know why? He's in a new role. So I'm going to be fair to him. You're in a new role, son. Just like Jalen Hurts was put in a new role. You're in a new role. You're a starter now. It's time to play. Right? I think that's fair. Tone's on his A game today. How many games does it take before one may call a player a bust? Does it vary based on position played? I think it has a lot to do, Tone, and everyone, with your eyeball. If you see a guy and you go, that, like, how many times, like when you watched Michael Parsons play, how many games did it take? 5 to figure out he was going to be a really good ball player? Okay? It took Jalen Hurts some time. Jalen, it took him 2 years before people went, he's a $50 million guy. Remember, 17 games earlier, the question mark is he the guy? Nobody started the season out going, that guy's a $50 million a guy. It took him roughly, 34 games? Usually, Tone, let's do this. What is the average years for an NFL player's career in the league? Does anyone know? Average. Do you know what the average is for an NFL player's career with all the players that have ever played? Do you guys know? It's 3. It's 3 years. That's right. Tone says it's 3.3. I had an average career. Barrett Brooks had an exceptional career. He's 1% of the 1%. But what you want to see in that 3 years is improvement, like Hurts. Hurts' improvement is going on that trajectory where you go like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Aaron Donald, Roquan Smith, Bobby Wagner, Fletcher Cox. Keep seeing that in 3 years, a guy going up. He was a backup last year. And like I said, he's now in a starter's role. Now, look, do you get outliers like Reggie and LT? Yes. But those are the exceptions. Reggie came to the Eagles. I think he only had like 10 games when he came from the USFL in the supplemental draft. Everyone forgets Reggie White is a supplemental draft. I think Reggie had 22 sacks in 10 games. Guys like that are like, those are the exceptions. Okay, those are the exceptions. Tone says that's why fans should be mindful when talking shit on certain guys. To play 3 years in the league is a real accomplishment. And to a player that plays a decade it's exceptional. Barrett Brooks playing 12 years is my wife has a rule. If you play over 10 years, you should be a Hall of Famer. In that league, you play 10 years. It's insane. It's insanity. Barrett knew how to play the game. It's a phenomenal career. Plus, he's got a ring on it, and he played in 2 of the greatest places on the planet, Philly and Pittsburgh. The rest of it was to keep it going, but it was Pittsburgh and Philly. I admire the guy. I admire him. 12 years? My friend Ed Too Tall Jones played 17 seasons. Took a couple years off for boxing, came back and still was a stud. Crazy. So let me get here. Brandon Graham, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, and Josh Sweat. Use your D-line. With Milton, Williams, and Street as your rotating guys. How do I feel about the front four? Graham's a little old, but productive. Jordan is now a starter. Fletcher, I bet he comes in great shape. They gave him $10 million. I don't think Fletcher's going to come in and take it as a retirement pay. I think Fletcher's going to come in, and I think Fletcher's going to be a leader. You know why? Fletcher's always been a leader. Average length of an NBA career is four. I didn't know that. 4.5 years. MLB is 2.7. Well, baseball is the hardest sport to play. Not the toughest. It's the hardest. Tone, baseball is the toughest sport to play. Here's why. You can have 27% success rate at the plate and make $10 million. The greatest player in the history of the sport when it comes to batting average is Ty Cobb. 367. So 36% at the plate he had, and he's the greatest hitter of all time. I mean, that shows you how hard that is. You're not even 50% in that sport. 36% at the plate. 36.7% at the plate, Ty Cobb. He's the greatest hitter in the history of the game. Remember that. That's why baseball is difficult. Throwing, catching, running. It's not the toughest. My wife's like, you're not going to call rain out. Sorry. I mean, I know we play in the rain and all that shit. Okay. How do you feel about the front four? Brandon Graham, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, in rotation, Street, and Milton Williams. That's pretty good. I'm trying to think of a better D-line. Remember, stay in the NFC East. Maybe Washington has a better front four. I would probably say Washington has a better front four. Not by a lot. Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham. I don't know. Maybe I'm still going to say Eagles. Then you're rotating guys. Milton. Milton's an important dude. You know why? He's got to take the role on now of Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, who were very productive at their 36-year-old ages. They were pretty good. You know what, 11? I don't think Dallas is better than the Eagles' front four. Sweat had double digits. Fletcher had 7 sacks. Graham had double-digit sacks. I mean, they didn't have that kind of production on their front four. Is Dallas a little better at stopping the run? I think they're pretty comparable and compatible. To me, the second-best unit, New York's got a couple good guys in there too, but the Eagles beat the shit out of that defensive line in the divisional game. They crushed that line. Look, if you know what, I see why Howie said this. Still, seriously, Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, Milton Williams, and Street in rotation. What do you make of the front four? It's pretty formidable. That's a good front four. Now, some would go like this. Yeah, what about Hargrave's 11 sacks? Well, I think Street, Milton Williams, and Jordan Davis should be able to pick up the 11 sacks. I think you can get a 3-man guy in there, and I think if those 3 guys – how about this? If those 3 guys end up with 11 sacks, you replaced it with cheaper money. And, again, as we said, and Tone said it perfectly, dude, premium positions are not defensive tackle when you're talking about impact positions. I get you have to stop the run, But you know what impact position also means? Big pay positions. I don't think defensive tackle is a big pay position either. Unless it's Aaron Donald, I am not paying a defensive tackle $25 million. I would move that. Personally, I think that's what's killing the Rams, paying Aaron Donald. They have no corners now. They have one wide receiver. They have no O-line, and they don't have any running backs. The Rams are so far who they were. Ramsey wasn't the player because the linebacking play wasn't what it needed to be, and the O-line was terrible. And they're playing a D tackle, $20 million, and he didn't play last year. I don't think defensive tackle is an impact position. I'm not paying. Hey, 49er, I know you in here, and I know you love to move. I think he's a fine ball player, Javon Hargrave. I'm not paying that guy $20 million. You can kiss that goodbye. Not happening. I would say this to you. I think the Eagles have the best front four in the NFC East. Pretty comfortable saying that. And get this, Jordan Davis is going to be wedged in between Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. If I were Jordan Davis, I would make sure that I was like Velcro next to those two men to learn how to prepare myself to be a starter. Being a rotation guy is one thing. Being a starter where you're counted on playing 65 snaps and percentage of the snaps, you better get your ass in shape and be ready to rock and roll. And get this, I'm going to make a point to you. Remember something here. Tone goes, in order to get paid at non-premium positions, you have to be, that's right, like Donald. Remember something, folks. Big Sills comes from a position of failure. My issues weren't talent. Mine were other things, unfortunately. So I'm coming from a position of failure. The things I wish I had done. Was there anybody stronger than me? No. Faster? No. Did people do more homework than me? Yes. Did I study the game like I did in college? It's funny, I studied the game more in college. But then again, I could get away with more in college. Got to the NFL, you can't get away with shit like you can if you're playing against Ole Miss. You can't get away with an improper technique on a great guard like Isaac Seumalo or on a center like. Do you think Jason Kelce kills people with strength? That flat step that he takes to get up and scoop and slip on the linebackers is a transcendent step. He's arguably one of the three greatest centers I've ever seen. He's quick, flat step, not an angle step, flat, up, scoop, slip, up, second level, third level. How many guards and centers have you ever seen get on second and third levels down the field? Let alone the fact that guards don't do it. You never see centers doing that. Marina goes leverage. Well, leverage has a lot to do with technique. Hey, Yale, they're all strong. Welcome to the NFL. Hargrave, funny, Tanner. Anyone who thinks Hargrave is overrated is high. It's true. He's a functional run stopper. But what makes him good is you could line him in a 3. You can line him in a 0 technique or in a 1 technique or in a shade. He's good at it all. And that's what he's being paid for, because to me, to get a guy like Javon Hargrave in San Francisco's front four, they want to go multi-front. They want to go bare front, 50 front. They want to go wide 9. They want to do maybe 34. And you can move him around in the middle there for that. Put him at the nose, put him on a 1, put him in a 3 technique. Put him in a wide 3. Get Bosa out wide, put him in that wide 3. They want to try to create space for pass rushing and blitzes. That's what it looks like to me why they signed him. Okay? But would we agree? Hey, look, listen, because I put this down on paper and I went, this ain't that bad. You think the Eagles have the best front four in the NFC? Yeah. Yeah. I think it's closer now. Washington, Dallas, New York. I think it's closer. But hey, let's do this. Is there a more experienced defensive line in the NFC East? Allen and that bunch in Washington are good. There's some holes in Dallas. They've kind of fixed the middle. New York's got some players. Milton Williams gets 7 sacks. You covered the Javon Hargrave loss if he gets 7 sacks. Say Street gets 4 and Milton Williams gets 7, you've covered it. Even if Jordan Davis has 3 sacks, you covered it. You get 11 sacks out of the backup guys in the rotation. I hate calling them backup. I don't like calling anybody a backup in the NFL. The rotating guys, if they get 11 sacks, you covered it. Niner fan, he's a good ball player. You just overpaid him. And listen, just like I said with CJ, I'm not going to. I thought he should have been a Pro Bowl. I thought he should have been the All-Pro defensive tackle. I don't know how Aaron Donald misses half the season, and he's the All-Pro defensive tackle. And Hargrave played on the NFC Championship football team, had 11 sacks, and was instrumental on that front four. He doesn't even make the Pro Bowl. That's insanity. But it's politics. It's all good. Construct your perfect D-line, Sileo. If I'm building a cost-effective D-line, my DTs will be pure run stuffers and send all my money to the edge rushers. If I was going to build a defensive line in today's NFL, okay, I would put people like Saragusa and Vince Wilfork in my D tackles. Okay? And do you know where they're going to get their sacks? Having guys like who would I play on my ends? I don't want to go too crazy because I'm trying to be realistic. Because if you have Reggie on there, I would have Goose, Sam Adams, Vince Wilfork. They'd be my tackles. This is today's NFL. My ends would be Bosa, Nick. And I want Nick, I'm going to play on the weak side, too, of my ends. Because I want him on tight ends. My other guy, be a shocker to you, a Zach Allen type. Or somebody maybe like a J.J. Watt over there. J.J. Watt, Nick Bosa, and my 2 tackles would be Wolfork and Fletcher Cox if you want to go. Fletcher Cox, Vince Wilfork, Nick Bosa, and J.J. Watt would be my D-line. And guess what would happen? Because these guys would get so much push up the field and get the tackles. What is that going to create as long as you don't get pushed off the ball or stymied at the line of scrimmage? Those 2 tackles in the middle are going to get garbage sacks because they're not getting pushed off the ball. The pressure is going to come to them. That will help Jordan Davis. If the 2 ends, Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham, can get pressure, Jordan Davis will get garbage sacks. Why? Quarterback's got to step up. As long as he's not getting stymied at the line of scrimmage, which he does, and he gets some push. How many times do you see Vince Wilfork or you see any of those guys in the middle, all of a sudden you watch and they get – how many times did you see Ndamukong Suh get sacks this year? Just because the pressure from Hassan Reddick came in. Slasher goes, Nick Bosa did nothing against the Eagles. Again, guy, you make it sound like you put 300. It was the least amount of yards all season in any game was against San Francisco's defense. You had 230 yards in real yards against them. You didn't blow them up. I heard like Sal Palantonio saying that. I was like, you think 230 yards in total offense is blowing somebody up in today's NFL? I don't. It was situational turnovers. It was really the Eagle defense that was crazy great in that game. That's right. Long as you're pushing that pocket. Okay, what the problem that you get in today's NFL, if you can run the ball on somebody, game's over. I tell everyone this. Dude, having your head pushed in for a team that runs 300 yards on you is like having one hand tied behind your back and you not being able to fight in a fair fight. How many games have you ever seen where a guy, what did Brady throw for in that Super Bowl against the Eagles? Did he throw for 500 yards in that game? Right? Did he throw for like 500 yards, 490, whatever? It was some huge number he threw for in that game, right? Didn't matter. 500 plus. Brady threw for 500 yards. And yet, get this, because the Eagles dominated him at the point of attack, it was the only time I've ever seen a Bill Belichick football team in a critical game like that basically put up the white flag and they're in the trenches finally waving the white flag. Okay, I surrender. Eagles beat that team up. Beat them up. Passing for 400 or 500 yards. I think that stat sometimes is the most overrated stat on the planet. You show me a team that runs for 250 yards on teams, I'll show you a team with massive success, hence the Eagles. How many times you see the Eagles go for 248, 238 on the ground, and you're looking at it, and some people go, hey, well, they can't close teams out in the second half. They didn't have to. You know why? They beat you up. You could be in a game against the Eagles the last really 2 years since the 2-5 start, and you could do this. Okay, 21-17, if the Eagles won a game like that, did you ever really think the other team was coming back when the Eagles ran for 238 yards? Foles threw for 500 yards too? I didn't know that. I thought he threw for 348 in that game. Or 455? That's some number too. Told you. All right. So, hey, do we agree? Eagles have the best front four in the NFC. That's a great thing to think about on March 31st. Your rotation guys, I think the guy Street will be a good addition. They'll probably, watch this, and if you added Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech or Miles Murphy, right? Pretty good and younger. Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox are going to worry me because of their age and how many reps are they going to play? Do you really think that Fletcher Cox is going to play 72 or 62, 64% of the plays? I thought he got worn out until they got Sue and Joseph. I thought he got worn out. I thought that Tennessee game, he was or Pittsburgh, whatever it was, he was out of gas. Then they get to two dudes in there, his game picked up. I thought he got better. You know what's funny? I thought Fletcher Cox got better towards the end of the year, and Jordan Davis got worse. So I would give this. I think that's a formidable defensive line. I'm really I'm excited about that D-line now. I'm going to put that down here. That's the strength of the defense. Well, I'm going to tell you why it's the strength of the defense here in a second. I know some of you are going to say corner. That's secondary in totality. You think your secondary is better today than it was a year ago? With Epps and CJ in the middle and the two corners? Come on, man. Don't kid yourself. I'll get to that here in a minute. Linebackers. Hassan Reddick. Arguably, you could have made the comment, him or Nick Bosa were the two best defensive football players down the last month of the season when it comes to pass rushing. You could make that argument. And here, you will never hear me say this, and I said it yesterday to you, and I'll say it again. You'll never hear me do this. Hey, I want to see it again. Shit, man. He's going on year 5, Sills. You know, he's going on year 5 with how he's signing CB, DTLB, and safety and free agency. He's doing a good job at not tipping his hand on the draft. How do you know he's not signing one of those guys telling you he's going to sign one of the positions that he signed someone to? Which one, though? And that's, again, we got a topic on that tone later. We're going to eliminate positions later on. Reddick was possessed. He was. Nakobe Dean at middle linebacker. See, to me, Nakobe Dean in a forefront. How do you think Nakobe Dean would play with Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox in front of him? Or how do you think he'd play uncovered? What I mean by is this. You've got to cover a guard. I don't think that's his position. I think if you put him on today's NFL guards at 215 pounds, he'll get killed. I don't care how talented, how athletic he is. Little dudes get beat up by big dudes. Plain and simple. And it's not here. I do this to you guys sometimes. I'm going to show you. Here's Nakobe Dean. Do I think Nakobe Dean's an athlete? Obviously, played at Georgia, SEC player, one of the great players in that program's history. Absolutely, I do. But here, watch this. What am I doing? And I've showed you guys this many times. I'm constantly hitting the nail. I'm constantly hitting the nail. I'm constantly hitting the nail. Eventually, the nail head breaks. Especially if you don't have the size. You get worn down. 215-pound inside linebacker in a 34 lining up on Landon Dickerson or Trent Williams is a disaster in its making. He can't handle that pressure for 17 to 20 weeks. Absolutely not. Kaiser White could play on the perimeter and the outside because he's not inside in traffic. And by the way, TJ Edwards, look at TJ Edwards. You ever seen TJ Edwards lined up next to Nakobe Dean? One guy looks like a kicker and the other guy looks like a D lineman when you put those two guys next to one another. The size differential itself is what made TJ play 17 games. Kobe can't take that pressure. And look who he had in front of him at Georgia. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I mean, Jesus criminy. You're going to put him in a 34? He will never make it. Now, if they play him right, okay, and they cover him in a 43, I think he could be effective. I'm just not, look, he couldn't beat Kaiser White out. He couldn't beat TJ Edwards out, who was an undrafted free agent. He couldn't beat him out. Steal of the draft beats out free agents. Couldn't even get time playing Kaiser White's position. Those guys were exceptional players. I mean, if you think about it, one guy wasn't drafted. The other guy was let loose to walk the street from the Chargers. I mean, you couldn't get on the field at all. Well, again, do I sound down on him? I'm apprehensive of him. Jordan Davis, I think Jordan, look, I told you this. Jordan was just drafted too high, but I still think he's a first rounder. He's just drafted too high. Nakobe Dean, I'm very apprehensive on him. Okay, I'm not sold on him. I'm just not. He wasn't any impact on special teams. I want to see it. I haven't seen it yet. Hey, maybe this guy turns out to be like Denzel Perriman. Denzel Perriman's a little dude out of UM. I like Denzel. I saw Denzel Perriman. Tone, I'll tell you this, the smallest linebacker I've ever seen in my life. You know, Sam Mills was built different, man. He just had big legs on him. It was just a different dude. But when Denzel Perriman came walking to me, someone goes, yeah, that's the Chargers draft choice. I think they even took him in the third. And I was like this, that is the smallest NFL linebacker I have ever seen. I could not believe it. And he's played a ton of years. He's played a long time, man. I think he just got a brand new deal. This guy's, hey, Sam was 5'9". I think Denzel's 5'9". Little dude, man. London Fletcher too, man. Another one of them small dudes. Nicholas Morrow will be replaced. Okay? And get this. You know why he's okay in that position there at the will linebacker? You know why he's okay? He's experienced. And right now, they need experience in that position. So, okay, how he's looking at it like this. At this non-premium position, what's the number one thing we need? Okay? Let's face it. TJ Edwards and Kaiser White were really good ball players. Okay? They were good ball players. Were they replaceable? Yes. They're very replaceable. Depending on who your front four is. And now that you look at your front four, you're pretty formidable. I think this is the easiest position to replace on this defense for Sean Desai. Because why? The Eagles don't put a premium on it. They want dudes to make plays in there. I'm not saying they don't look at it as an important aspect of what the defense needs to do. Because when they put TJ Edwards in there, TJ Edwards solidified the defense because he was a run-stopping, gap-filling dude. Could not cover a tight end to save his life, but it wasn't important for them to do that because they were getting to the quarterback. Look, this kid Morrow might be the right answer for them. Hey, you know, Tone, who does such a good job at throwing things out there at me, Sills, you know, who did he have playing in front of him in Chicago? It's a great point. Hicks went to Tampa. They moved defensive tackles out of there. They get rid of Robert Quinn. Shit, the guy next to him, Roquan Smith, they traded to Baltimore. So this guy's on an island. And that's why the Bears had the worst defense in the NFL last year. So when you say he had 116 tackles, I say they were non-impact tackles. Well, it's probably because he had non-impact players around him. Now when you have impact players around him, could he fill the gap enough? Yeah, it probably could. Here's the secondary. Tony, I want to finish up the defense before we take a time out here. Slay and Bradbury at corner. You're back intact. At premium positions. Look at where the Eagles' premium positions on defense. Corner, pass rusher, and really front four. Slay, good. Here's the problem, though. You've got inexperience at the safety position. Okay, complete inexperience. Well, Edmonds, let me get to that. Bears have no DTs. They still don't, but they want to spend north of $100 million on linebackers, man. Dude, not only that, they sign all them linebackers, and then they get rid of a guy who's a preeminent or second preeminent linebacker, and it doesn't make sense. Well, it kind of does. The Bears are telling you they didn't want to pay the money that Baltimore paid for Roquan Smith. Okay. So how well will Darius Slay and James Bradbury play with new safeties? And what's Avonte Maddox's role going to be? Okay. Terrell Edmonds, there's a reason Pittsburgh moved off him. Could be a salary cap thing. They gave a bunch of money, very un-Steeler-like, to players on the market to play in the secondary. Pittsburgh is a big-time operation that likes to develop its own players. Reed Blankenship, sorry, I'm not sold on him. I think your safety position, again, for anyone to say that Edmonds is an upgrade, this is what Seth and I said. I mean, so you think you're going to get two guys in a row that are going to go on the market next year for $8 million? CJ just left for $8 million. You think Edmonds is going to have a one-year deal enough for it? He's going to make $8 million next year. I don't see that at all. Now, is he good enough back? Now, I heard Barrett say something today that I agree with. He's a pure safety. CJ was kind of like learning it. See, CJ got you know why Gardner Johnson got the money? Because that's a position he never played really. And he was so exceptional at it, everyone sees the promise. It had nothing to do when people talking about whether or not he had the ability. He led the NFL in interceptions, never having played the position. They paid him on watching him play and getting better and better and better. Were there issues sometimes on run fits? That whole defense had run issues. They were one of the worst tackling defenses in the NFL last year. It wasn't him. It was all of them. And now the Eagles have lost 5 dudes, as D. Gunn says, off that defense that were 5 top tacklers on a unit that wasn't considered a good tackling team. So, but the Bears' point, is he a pure safety? Yes. So what's that mean? He's going to have better technique. That could benefit Slay and Bradbury. And I think that's where the upgrade probably comes. CJ Gardner-Johnson plays like the kid in Dallas Diggs, just different positions. There's a lot of gambling in there. One guy's the gambler in Dallas. The other guy's learning the position. That's the difference between Edmonds. You know who he is. That's why Pittsburgh moved on him. But you know who he is. He's a solid safety. Okay? Gardner Johnson had never played the position and played like he was one of the top safeties in the league. That's the difference in the two players. Right there. And that's why that guy's making $8 million. All right, let me take a timeout. Got something really cool. By the way, Rick Gosselin, you guys want Eric Allen in the Hall of Fame, right? Rick Gosselin is the chairman of the Veterans Committee for the Hall of Fame. You want Eric Allen in the Hall. I had one guy yesterday say he would debate Eric Allen. You want another guy? 5:30 Eastern from Talk of Fame Network, our friend Rick Gosselin, who's not only a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, he covers the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to look at all the teams moving forward in the NFC East. And we're going to try to get Eric Allen in the Hall of Fame. You know, I'm on all these panels. People ask me all the time, what do you make of these 5 guys? So we're going to talk to them, okay? And I have 7 players that I think are the biggest question marks in the Eagles going into the draft. Plus, 2024, I've got a list here of 32 early bird players for next year's draft to keep in mind. And it could affect what the Eagles do, in my opinion, in 28 days. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.